We just wrapped up what I'm assuming is the final Switch 1 focused direct, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys and say the Switch 1 went out with a crazy bang, but we didn't need it to. Everyone knows this is just the appetizer before the big full 5-course meal we're getting next week, but even within this appetizer, there's a lot of stuff here that looked really good, so I want to talk about obviously my thoughts on the direct and what was shown off, but more importantly and more interestingly, what this direct means for not only the Nintendo Switch 1, but the Switch 2 as well. There are some really interesting patterns here of when different games are being released, which games didn't get release announcements at all, and Nintendo just putting in the work building up the platform to make the inevitable Switch 2 transfer that much easier. We're gonna talk about all of it and what it means, so hey guys, it's Thomas from the Switch Stop, and let's jump right into it. Now there are a couple of main things that I would like to talk about, but first thing, the star of that show was Retro Studios with Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Man, this game looks ridiculously good. Purely from a visual standpoint, this will probably end up being the best looking Switch 1 game when it's all said and done. I was continuously impressed throughout this trailer at just how much Retro Studios is able to squeeze out of this tiny little 2015 chipset tablet, and I was watching this direct and call with the other Switch Stop guys, and our editor Kagan said it best. This looks like a game that took 8 years. Obviously wish it didn't take 8 years, but you know, I mean, we'll take it now. So diving deeper into Prime 4, the main thing that was shown off here were the psychic abilities. Everything else from a gameplay perspective is pretty standard. We saw Samus's little dash, we saw the scan visor, and we saw normal shooting, but the psychic abilities seem to be this game's main mechanic, especially when it comes to puzzles, and that weird time stop thing where you can change the direction of your bullet as it's flying, that is gonna be pretty sick. That'll be fun. However, enough gushing about what we got from Prime 4, I'm more interested in what we didn't get. This is a Switch 1 game, through and through. Everything we've seen on this game is gonna be on Switch 1, because I feel like Nintendo is not going to show us Switch 2 footage trying to pass it off as a Switch 1 game. That's like, I don't know, I feel like that's kind of messed up. However, with that being said, with Prime 4 being a Switch 1 game, we still didn't even get a release. We didn't even get like a late 2025, which we got for something like Pokemon Legends ZA. So if it's later in the year, why wouldn't they just say it? Well, maybe it's not later in the year. I really think now more than ever that Prime 4 could also be a launch title for Switch 2, and they do that Breath of the Wild type thing where the exact release date is the same date as the console, so obviously they wouldn't want to say like June 20th or whatever it's going to be in the direct, because then people would start guessing. That to me seems like the only reason to not at least give us a window of when this game releases. And again, they did the exact same thing with Breath of the Wild. Like for the longest time we knew Breath of the Wild was coming out in what, 2016, then it gets delayed, okay, 2017, but all the way up until January, we did not know when this game was actually going to release. And then we learned in that January presentation it's releasing on March 3rd, 2017, which we had just learned was also the same day the console was releasing. I really think there's a decent chance we see at least a little bit of Prime 4 again next week, and that's where we actually get the release date, with it being the same day as the new console. Is that copium? Maybe. Let me know down in the comments below what you think, but from my perspective, it just really does not make any sense. If this is solely a Switch 1 game and will have nothing to do with Switch 2, like they won't use it to try and market the newer power or whatever. First of all, what a fumble, because this is a game that already looks incredible and would look so much better on Switch 2. Plus Switch 2 is gonna have a mouse mode, and this is a first-person shooter. It really feels like a match made in heaven. But if this was just a Switch 1 game, why would they not give us at least a window? Being this cagey about the release date, to me, only makes sense in a universe where this has something to do with Switch 2. Alright, next let's move on to two other games that got announced in this direct. Two pretty big surprises actually, from series that a lot of people have been asking for, but everyone kind of thought was dead. Those series are Rhythm Heaven and Tomodachi Life. Both of them getting not just ports, but straight up sequels. Both of them look pretty fun in terms of their respective series from what we've seen, and both of them releasing in 2026.
But I want it now!
Yeah, okay, let's talk about it. Yes, 2026 seems ridiculously far off. Yes, I would like to play Tomodachi Life 2 sooner than 2026. However, when realizing that these games are coming out a full year from now, we can start to paint a mental picture of what the Switch 1 send-off will be and how it will transition to the Switch 2. In order to fully grasp this, I'm gonna have to take y'all back to when the Switch released with the 3DS. To me, it doesn't feel that long ago, but it was like 8 years, and I'm sure some of you guys don't remember, so quick little recap. The 3DS had sold really well by the end of its life. There were a bunch of people who owned 3DSs, and the games were still selling somewhat decent. The Switch sold more, and games are selling better on Switch, but the point still stands. Nintendo was going to support the 3DS for a little bit, even well after the original Switch launched. Now, how did they support it? With a bunch of games that didn't really make sense on Switch because they weren't big system sellers, and they didn't need the super good graphics. That's what's going on here with Rhythm Heaven and Tomodachi Life 2. Rhythm Heaven obviously does not need Switch 2, it's like a Flash game. I'm just glad they're making another one of these at all. But Tomodachi Life 2 is the perfect example of the type of games that I think Nintendo is going to focus on for the Switch 1 moving forward. Tomodachi Life is an ultra casual experience, akin to the likes of Animal Crossing. Graphically, it doesn't need to be anything more than what it already was on the 3DS. So while the HD bump to Switch 1 is nice and looks great, no one's gonna be saying, oh man, they should have waited for Switch 2 for this one. This is the type of game they want to get out to as many people as possible, fully utilize that blue ocean marketing strategy to grab all the casuals, and this game has a better chance of doing that and being a big success on Switch with the higher install base. Obviously, you can still play this game on Switch 2 because Switch 2 will be out by the time this releases. It's releasing in 2026. But the point still stands. The 3DS got games like WarioWare Gold. Rhythm Heaven is pretty much a one-to-one comparison to that, at least from like a marketing, how well it'll do, you know, all that perspective. And with the 3DS, Nintendo kept supporting it for a couple of years after the Switch released. I think they were making games for it all the way up until like 2019. They are going to be doing the same thing with the Switch, so do not be surprised when a bunch of the Switch 2 Directs, you know, once the Switch 2 is released and we're just getting Nintendo Directs, they will most likely start with a news headline section at the beginning for Switch 1 specific titles. Even more so now because these games are backwards compatible. Switch 1 games can be played on your Switch 2 in a way that 3DS games could not be played on your Switch. I'm not expecting them to do a ton here, like we're not getting any massive 10-pole Switch 1 games anymore, but Tomodachi Life 2 and Rhythm Heaven, specifically Tomodachi Life 2, that's a big one people have been asking for a while, do a great job of showing off what the Switch 1's lineup could potentially be like for the next couple years or so as Nintendo slowly transitions over to the Switch 2. These are the types of games, you know, stuff like this, maybe that Kirby Planet Robobot port that was like rumored or something, I don't know, but like that level of game is the type of stuff we're gonna be seeing, and to be honest, I'm all here for it. Specifically because, again, Switch 1 games can still be played on your Switch 2. I remember games like Samus Returns releasing on my 3DS, and I was just like, that game looks so fun, but I don't want to play it unless it's on my Switch. We'll be able to play these cool new games on Switch 2, which I think is a good thing. But speaking of which, how do the games get on Switch 2 from Switch 1? I want to talk about one of the more interesting announcements in this entire Direct, and it wasn't even a game. I'm talking about Nintendo Switch virtual game cards. Through this new option on the menu, you can now look at all your digital games as virtual game cards. And not only is this an extremely convenient and streamlined way of transferring games, but also sharing games as well, which is super cool. In terms of transferring, yeah, I mean, we know why they're doing this now. They did not wait 8 years of the Nintendo Switch just to have a Direct where they make this whole deal about virtual game cards for them to not be on Switch 2. They will be on Switch 2, and obviously they showed off that you can transfer save data and, you know, the entire game between different Nintendo Switch consoles, but this is likely going to be how you transfer save data over to the Nintendo Switch 2 as well. I am actually quite a big proponent of this. I was assuming we would have to do a full console transfer that transfers over all the save data, but like there's a bunch of Switch games I do not need the save data for on my Switch 2. Being able to choose a la carte exactly what games you want to transfer over with this virtual game card thing, it seems like it'll make it a lot easier, not only for power users who might have a bunch of games like myself and don't want all of them over, but also for more casual people who don't really understand a ton about technology. This seems like a very simple and easy way of visualizing your digital catalog. It'll help people when transferring over data from consoles, but now let's move from transferring games to sharing them. This was one of the coolest things in the Direct for me because it's such a nice like pro-consumer move. Basically, if you're in a family plan with anyone, and trust me, you do not have to be family with them to be in a family plan. I mean, you could just be in a family plan with pretty much anyone. You can lend out your game cards for a period of up to 2 weeks for other people to play. This is a really great idea. Being able to share digital games like this is great for 3 main reasons, and I'm gonna break it down for you right now. The first reason is it's a smart business move from Nintendo. You get the games for 2 weeks. That's not a short period of time. There will 100% be cases where people are like, I think I want to try maybe Prime 4, but I've never played a Metroid Prime game. I'm not entirely sure if it would be for me. I like first-person shooters, but I don't know. Oh, hey man, I heard you had Prime 4. You want to like lend that to me for like a week or so? Someone plays a little bit of it, really enjoys it, boom. It's like those free trials on steroids, and this will definitely result in a lot more digital purchases from people for Nintendo. The second main reason this is pretty cool is that you can lend these out for 2 weeks. I'm not gonna lie, I'm no stranger to a little slog fest when I'm playing video games. I've put in my shifts. I've sat at my desk for far longer than I'd like to admit playing one game for the entire day. With 2 weeks worth of time, you could pretty much finish anything except for like a JRPG. So while yes, if you really enjoy the game and it's something you want to replay, people will go buy it, but this will also just save people like a lot of money. I was using the Metroid Prime example earlier, and I'll continue to do so because with Metroid Prime Remastered on Switch, that is one of my favorite games of all time. It's such a good, well-packaged experience. The updated controls, updated graphics, everything about it is so good. One of my favorite parts about Metroid Prime is that you can finish it pretty quickly. It does not had itself out with extra content. It's a really tight experience that could 100% be completed in a couple of days, much less 14. I can now share this game that I love so much with other people, and they can pretty much play the game to completion without even having to purchase it. I mean, that's pretty cool. That's, again, a great, pro-consumer move. Another reason this is a really smart move by Nintendo is it just incentivizes the family plan even more so than it already is. I've said this many times, the family plan is the only way you should be buying Nintendo Switch Online. Unless you don't have a single friend who is also buying Switch Online, then yeah, sure, go for the individual one. But realistically, if you can find at least one person to split the family plan with, it's worth it from there. Like, fiscally, it just makes sense. And the more people you add in, the cheaper and cheaper that plan becomes. Being able to say, oh yeah, if you join my family plan, not only will you get cheaper Nintendo Switch Online, but also you get access to my entire game catalog and I get access to yours. I mean, that is one really powerful way of boosting the value proposition of Nintendo Switch Online. I'm also really interested on how this will specifically interact with Switch 2, because there are so many rumors about Switch 1 games that are not only playable on Switch 2, but improved with higher graphics, resolution, frame rate, etc. And while yes, a lot of that could definitely just be done under the hood with really no additional work put in by the developers, what if there are certain games that do get that additional work with higher quality textures added in to take advantage of this higher resolution, higher frame rate, higher draw distance, etc. If that's the case, then transferring maybe, say, your Breath of the Wild game card to Nintendo Switch 2, once it transfers over, maybe you get Breath of the Wild Deluxe or something on Switch 2. You're not buying a new game, but since you're transferring over the game card digitally, they're able to install new stuff, match it with your save data, and maybe add a little icon on the virtual game card just to designate, hey, this is a Switch 2 game now. Yes, obviously it started off as a Switch 1 title, but since you've transferred the virtual game card over to Switch 2, it has now been patched and updated with increased resolution or whatever. I think that would make a lot of sense, but I'm curious if you guys can let me know what you think down in the comments below. Before we end off this video, I just wanted to say something to you guys real quick. We have another video coming out before the big April Direct, but it's already been recorded, and I really have to grind my schoolwork so I'm actually free for that April Direct, so this will be the last video I'm recording before the Switch 2 really gets shown off. I won't go too deep into it because I'm sure you'll hear this from plenty of other Nintendo YouTubers this week, but seriously guys, thank you for everything for the Switch 1, duration. I know to you guys we're a YouTube channel that hopefully you watch and enjoy, and hopefully we're able to provide you with some entertainment, make you think a little bit, but to me and to us, you guys have changed my life, like, forever. I seriously cannot say thank you enough. Like, my entire life, I've been doing this since 2017. I'm 22 right now. That's a significant chunk of my life that is spent making YouTube videos, and I'm so grateful that you all are here for the ride and you enjoy these videos. It means so much to me, and I really just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for a great 7 odd years. I don't know, like 7.5, and here's to however many more we go. I won't drag it on. Again, I'm sure you'll hear that spiel from a bunch of other people, but seriously, from the bottom of my heart and everyone else who works here at Switched Up, you guys have genuinely changed our lives, and I just wanted to say thank you before we move on to the next era of Nintendo. Man, I'm so excited. If you guys are excited as well, you already know we're gonna be making a ton of videos. We're finally gonna have a bunch of stuff to talk about. Brand new Mario Kart, maybe 3D Mario, so much information on Switch 2. All of it will be covered here. We are going to be on the grind. So with that out of the way, I'm gonna get back to some homework so that I can actually, do that. But I'll see you guys in the next one. Subscribe if you're excited for Switch 2, and comment down below your thoughts on this video. I'll see y'all in the next one. I'm Thomas from the Switched Up, signing off. Peace.